Last week, we talked about Sermon on the Mount, but it's my last week, so we're going to talk about something different, all right? And so I've been thinking about my experience in Boston, and I don't know, feel like, I don't know if any of you guys are like this, where you kind of process things like later on, and so I know that even though I'm not like exhibiting the emotion now that, because it's just been busy, you know, like was it EDM and then just the pods and you guys are like helping with things and just getting ready to move and stuff. But then I know that I will have tears in Riverside because I had tears for Santa Cruz when I was in Boston. And so, I don't know, just processing things. So I wanted to talk about a different passage than Sermon on the Mount, and just to encourage us and remind us of what God has done here since we arrived in June 30th, 2021. And I asked Josh to pull up some pictures and videos and things, and he grabbed them from my phone. I don't know what he chose, but let's just watch a few of these and we'll cut it off if it's too long. He said he got my vlogs, all right? So it's just me.
Boston Airport, just got off. There's Winston right here. Julian.
This is when we just arrived. Tired but excited.
We're at KBL.
And we first got to KBL.
Everybody's leaving now, so let's say our goodbyes.
Just had breakfast and
We just unloaded into Brookline. That's when we just unloaded that pod.
we just finished unloading my pod. Look, I did it all myself. Just kidding. No, we had a lot of people who helped. We did it record time, under half an hour. That was a fast. All right. Great job, guys.
All right, okay. So how did that make you feel? Those of you who are there, how did that make you feel? All right? Turn to the person next to you and how did that make you feel? If you were there. If you were not there, then just look for someone who was there and hear from them. 30 seconds. As you thought about that.
Stepping into the sunlight, say hello to my new life. All my burdens are gone now that I'm with you.
You put me here on the front lines, and they're coming to me from all sides. But the Lord is my light, so I feel.
So I'm walking in.
All right, so maybe just shout out a few things. How did you feel? How did you feel? Sweaty? I guess literally you felt sweaty, right? Excited. Watching that, how did you feel right now? Nostalgic. All right. Okay. I remember how I felt. Now I remember how I felt because I processed things later on, and I felt anxious. Felt kind of kind of uncertain of what we're gonna do and how we're gonna reach the campuses and what's the plan. We arrived, but what's next? And I felt kind of, I started to feel kind of fearful because I'm walking around the streets of Boston and it's we're at the Red Sox game and Boston is this kind of capital of history and the top of academia and sports and all of that. And just people they seem taller, right? They seem more intimidating to me and stronger than me. And I remember Jackie and I looking at each other, and I don't know if I quite expressed this, but we're looking at each other and we have these 30 CPIs, these recent grads, right? And I'm most of whom we just met a couple weeks ago, and we're thinking about this great new massive city, and we're just thinking, boy, oh man, what have we gotten ourselves into? What have we gotten ourselves into? And so, I don't know, you ever feel like that? It's the reality of feeling it's all around, right? It's all around you, kind of surrounding you. And you're this little thing, and there's this great big thing, and you kind of feel outmatched, outclassed, intimidated, and you feel little as you face something much bigger than you. And I don't know, if you never felt like that, just borrow from the movies. I think a common motif of many summer blockbusters is exactly that. There's a massive force and it's assembled against a small little encampment. So have you ever seen the movie where alien dinosaurs attack the Great Wall of China? Really. Or about with an army of mind-controlled jade martial artists attack a village of pandas, okay? Or like, the entire armada of imperial walkers face off against a remnant of rebels in an old abandoned base. Seen those movies? All right, me neither, but you can imagine, right? Inside the encampments, usually there is one character, and it's usually not the main character, and I was a theater major, so it's a secondary one who serves as what's called the audience surrogate, okay? It's a script writing trick. It's meant to voice what you would feel if you were in that exact same situation. And so what are they doing? It's usually like the comic relief character or something like that, and it's a servant who's they're growing more anxious and more panicky and more fearful, and can you imagine what this character would be in that movie that you never saw, right? Insurmountable forces of opposition are all around them, outside, all right? That's how I felt, okay? That's me. But then at the same time, usually there's this other character, right? There's this other, and maybe it's the main character, maybe it's this wiser, sage kind of person, completely unfazed. And what are they? They're like sipping tea, calm, cool, collected. Why? Because they know something that the servant doesn't know, that other character doesn't know, that all the old superheroes are gonna come back, and they're gonna come back from the future as reinforcements. They're coming back. The dragon scroll, it's about to be unveiled, about to unleash the OP Jedi powers in this suit made on the planet Mordor. There's this other reality that's about to break through. And I think that's why I picked this passage in 2 Kings 6, okay, because it's similar context. So I'll read. I won't read all of this, okay, just to give you the background. The king of Syria is warring against Israel, but someone keeps warning. Sorry, I shouldn't have shown this. We'll read this in a bit, okay? The background is the Syria is warring against Israel. They're fighting, and someone keeps warning the king of Israel when the king of Syria is about to attack them. So then the king of Syria, he is greatly troubled, and he asks someone, how come the king of Israel knows exactly when I'm going to attack? Who's working with him? Okay, and then we'll pick it up from here. And one of his servants said, "None, my lord, O king, but Elisha, the prophet who is in Israel, tells the king of Israel the words that you speak in your bedroom," which was not quite true. And he said, "Go and see where he is, that I may send and seize him." It was told him, "Behold, he is in Dothan." So he sent their horses and chariots and a great army, and they came by night and surrounded the city. When the servant of the man of God rose early in the morning and went out, behold, an army with horses and chariots was all around the city. So put yourself in the servant's shoes. You wake up early, 6 a.m., and you start brushing your teeth, and you look out the window, and the camera changes focus, right? Because cameras can do that, right? It's really cool. And then it changes focus from the reflection of the nervous eyes to what is beyond the window, and right where there normally is a horizon, where the sun usually peeks out, you see a dark, moving mass. And it's like snorting red eyes and weapons clanging on shields and armor on horses. And so you run over to the window on the other side of the house, and it's the same thing. Dark swarm of death. So you drop your toothbrush, okay? The people of God are familiar with being vastly outnumbered. You look through the Bible and you see Moses. He stood before Pharaoh and all the armies of Egypt. Elijah, he stood before all the 450 prophets of Baal at Mount Carmel. Daniel and his friends standing before the conquering King Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian culture. Apostle Paul facing the governor and the Roman Empire saying, "I appeal to Caesar." More often than not, the people of God, they find themselves arrayed against overwhelming forces that threaten reality. So, do you ever feel surrounded? Recently we've been going through Psalms, and a common theme is to be surrounded by enemies. I don't know if you picked that up, right? Surrounded by enemies, surrounded by problems and issues. And often it's when we're serving God that we feel the most surrounded. And that's what we felt when we came. We did feel surrounded. We felt surrounded by people, obviously, potential problems and issues, we quickly realized that transportation was going to be an issue. Like, remember when we first came and all the cars didn't arrive yet, and there were like 90 of us, and not enough spots in the cars, and so what are we going to do? Remember when we're trying to figure out, like, where are we going to find a meeting space large enough for Bible study and Sunday worship service? And so we met in Pastor Manny's like room at first, right? Like, how do we deploy the 90 of us across all of these campuses all around Boston, coordinate all of that, and still yet be the church together? And what do we do when we need to get away from the city? Where do we go? Like, we want to be the Acts 2 church to college students, but it's expensive in Boston, especially next to the college campuses, and they're all spread out. So where are we going to live? Man, that's a question we're still asking. Where are we going to be? So just curious, okay, how many of you who are there along the journey at one of those points, did you just want to kind of internally freak out and say, what are we going to do? Anybody just kind of felt like that? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And so I think this is what the servant must be feeling at this moment. Because he says, "Alas, my master, what shall we do?" So if you're playing the servant in the movie, how would you say that? You want to try? I don't know. You guys are not ready to act yet. Try it, okay? How would you say it? Some people are. How would you say this if you were directing this movie and you tell someone, play the servant? How would you direct them? Go. Try it. Okay, exactly. All right, good. Okay. "Alas, my master, what shall we do?" Something like that. I don't know. Maybe it's just, you go, "Alas, my master, what shall we do?" It's a quiet one. I don't know. Because in situations of calamity and great distress, like, isn't that what we do? Like, our first reaction is not, "I want to pray a prayer of trust in God's sovereignty." It's not, "God's good. He'll take us through. I wonder how he's going to get us through this." Often it's like the servant. He goes up to someone that he's close to, and you either start fretting or you start freaking out. What shall we do? But it's kind of hard to take on the receiving end. Because is "what shall we do" an innocent question about the plans? When someone asks you, "Hey, what are we going to do this weekend?" Is that always so innocent? Like, is it so innocent when someone asks you, like, "Hey, how are you going to cook that steak?" Like, there's a tone of like mistrust implied. And I think the servant is questioning Elisha, the prophet, the man of God. And if I'm in issues, he's probably questioning not just Elisha, but it's the God that he represents. "Hey man, I followed you here to this city. What are we going to do now? Because there's a serious problem right now. And what is our plan of action? Does God have a plan for all of this?" Behind those questions can be an implied doubt and mistrust, not just in the people of God, but in God himself. And behind our "what shall we do" often lies this question: where is God in all of this? As we try to love people over the past 2 years, and you have that love spurned, you get ghosted, being told, "We don't want you here," rejected, sometimes to our face, sometimes slandered behind our back. And it's disorienting. You're not quite sure where that's coming from. What do I do now? Like, do I restart? Go to another campus? Pivot? Move? I don't know. Do I just stop doing ministry? Where is God in all of this? And then on top of that, there's all these personal issues. Adjusting to city life, parking, weather, changing seasons, health issues. If it's not your health issues, it's the health issues of people you love. Came all the way out here. Now what? And at one level, these are important questions to ask, but at another level, there's a certain lack of trust and faithlessness, not just in God's people, but I think in God himself. I came back from a trip a couple months ago, not having slept much the previous nights, and I woke up at like 2 a.m., and Isaac was crying on the floor, and there's a pool of blood. He's bleeding from his mouth. We don't know why. So later on, we found out at the ER that he had probably fallen from his top bunk, and so he had to get some stitches. But otherwise, he's good and happy and stuff. But at the time, I didn't know that. So I started to do what any parent would do in that situation. I started to freak out, all right? And I don't remember too much from that night, but I remember going to Jackie and basically saying, "Alas, my master, what shall we do?" And it was actually more like, what do I do? What do I do? I don't know what to do. And just a shout out to the moms, right? Because it's Mother's Day. Like, moms are powerful, right? And when it comes to loving and taking care of the kids, aren't they the master? They are. And anyways, so I thought about it a couple of days later and what was in that initial panic. And I think there was a fear. And underneath that fear is like, man, what if my son dies? And, as irrational as that was my first, that's what I was feeling. And beneath that was the underlying question, actually, where is God in all of this? I was questioning God at that moment. I didn't know it at the time. What's behind that initial moment of panic that you get when you get that unexpected report from the medical professional? When you lose something, lose your job, your school, your campus, you go, where's God in all of this? The thing is, though, it doesn't even take death or disaster or tragedy for us to start questioning God's sovereignty. You could have an incredible mountaintop experience where you experience the reality of God. You have a message that convicts not just your mind, but your heart and your soul, and you have that moment of commitment, and you're singing praises to God and with his people. You feel like you could be there forever. After a retreat, you powerfully experience how God has been working in not just other people's lives, but in our midst as well, as people make salvation decisions. Or you just have that incredible personal devotional time where God speaks to you. It's not just paper pages, but God comes alive. He's directly addressing your life. You have these moments of clarity where God is the greatest reality. And this servant, I imagine the servant must have experienced some of these God moments as well. For who is Elisha? Elisha, he is the performer of miracles. He has multiplied oil, multiplied bread, raised a child from the dead, heals this other Naaman of leprosy, and at the very least, the servant has heard of these things, these moments where God isn't just present, but tangible. And for us, you have these moments where God is the greatest reality, but then what happens? You put your Bible away, you walk over to your CS lecture, the reality of your grades and your finals and the project, the paper, loans you have to pay off, hunt for summer jobs. There's family tension, smell of cars, your heavy backpack, notifications on your phone, dreary weather, allergies, and this cranky, drowsy feeling. It just fully assails you. Suddenly, the reality of God fades off into the murky distance. By lunchtime, you don't even remember what you did for DT that day. So it's not quite as dark and grim as horses and chariots, but all of this reality, threatening, mundane, worrisome anxiety, it just piles up. And it's arrayed against you. It threatens reality. It's not like there's no God in all of this, or that your daily life is godless, or that you're doubting the existence of God, but man, it takes eyes of faith to see God in the midst of that. And we know what that's like. Because, man, we all said, yes, Jesus, I want to answer your great commission. I want to go and make disciples of all nations. I don't want to stay in Jerusalem, but I want to go to the ends of the earth. And that's why over 400 people across Grace Point signed up to go to places like Boston. We all put our yes on the table. Here we are. We said our farewells to people that we loved, got close to. We all decided to follow Jesus to Boston. But then as I'm there in 311 Tappan in Brookline, the neighbors are banging above us, trying to figure out how to lead these 31 CPIs during the school before the campus is open. Even when it's not open, we experience some pushback from the police and, funny story with a sus-looking CPI and no place to gather all of the CPIs to train them. And I remember around the end of the first month, I'm sitting in the corner of my bedroom trying to produce my third prayer meeting video. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Where is God in all of this? So what's the master's response? Elisha, the prophet, the man of God, he looks out, insurmountable forces arrayed against him, long prophetic hair blowing in the wind, tense, inspiring violin music, growing bass line in the background. He says, do not be afraid, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. So note what he doesn't say. He doesn't say, hey, don't worry about it, it's going to be all right. He doesn't say, yeah, just let go and let God. He doesn't ignore the problem, nor does he respond with deluded over-optimism. No, he says, those who are with us are more than those who are with them. So if you're the servant, you're thinking like, what? More than them? Elisha, can't you see who's with them and who's with us? It's just you and me, and it's all of them all around us, surrounding us. No, Elisha is not blind. He sees all the dark, grim horses and chariots. He sees the forces assailed against him, but he's able to comfort because he also sees so much more. And with that, he prays that the servant would open his eyes. God opens his eyes, he blinks. And then, behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. With his prayer, the servant finally sees all of reality. Because just above the dark horizon of soldiers, where the sky usually meets the land, there's something greater. There's fire, horses and chariots of fire all around. Why didn't he see that before? It takes eyes to see. It takes eyes of faith to see the reality that God is here and has been here all the time. It's not just about me and how I'm feeling, my self-absorption. It's not about my small little life, the internal and external dramas. But there's this greater reality that is just about to break through. But it takes eyes of faith. It takes eyes of faith to see how God is going to break through to a freshman who steps onto campus, not sure what he'll find. And what's there. And in come the CPIs. They're playing spike ball and basketball, ultimate frisbee, whatever is necessary, making hot pot for 30 people, driving out in the transit, taking the T, giving rides. I don't know if the parents actually thought this, but the parents, they could have been like, forget this. I got this adorable little, child dying for my attention. Why am I trying to win the attention of these very not adorable people and put in all these man hours and all this effort? And where is God in all of this? But with one more year, maybe we see a glimpse of God at work as a small group of people grows. But hey, if you can't handle the mundane irritations of city life, maybe you wouldn't see that. Maybe you wouldn't see the 90 students spending a Friday learning about God scattered across greater Boston. You wouldn't see the 12 or so students coming in early to Sunday to be discipled. You wouldn't see the 17 people who made first-time salvation decisions. Didn't know God before at all, not churched. The 5 baptisms. The 31 recent grads, who thought they're all that, but now they're learning they're part of God's family. You see, it's not that God isn't here, it's that the subpar reality that we find ourselves lost in is sprinkled with real reality about to break through. Like a foreshadow when all hope seems lost and the hero is about to hang on the gallows. But underneath a tattered robe, we see the glimmer of an elvish bow, the glint of a sword that hints at the impending reality about to break through. But without eyes to see, our default attitude is to think, where is God in all of this? We don't see. That's what I thought as a freshman arriving UC Berkeley, 2002. I was this very cocky and lonely guy from New York City, and I was having conflict, with my parents. While I'm packing, while I'm on the plane, when we get off, as we're buying the furniture for our new room, buying my new bike, the minute they leave, I bike over to the gym. I live on north side. Bike over to the gym on south side. Play some basketball, wasn't very good. Come back, my bike is gone, it's stolen. And I'm utterly alone. I can't even call my parents because they're still on the plane. And I'm walking that 3/4 mile from south side to north side with a bike helmet in my hand, lump in my throat, thinking about the fact that I'm just this one tiny fish in a great big pond. All I could see was my loneliness. All I could see were just the overwhelming forces that were surrounding me. But if I had the eyes to see what God sees, then I would have seen me bathed in prayer, surrounded by hundreds of people, move-in day, early in the morning, with arms lifted up, singing, "Our God reigns." And maybe it's not horses and chariots of fire, but for those who have the eyes to see, it's clear that God is about to break through. So what do you see when you look at Boston? You know, many people, they look at Boston and they see this cool, hip college destination city, perfect mix of urban and suburban, history and modern living. They see the history, the sports, the education. On a Friday night, the dark undercurrent of college culture producing broken lives as well. All around, we see flickering lights of single rooms, lonely and isolated people can only find companions on a screen. But out of this seemingly godless campus, here's a flyer, here's a message, here's a person that reached out to me. There's glimpses. Is this a place that God is about to break through with reality? Just pulled up some pictures. I wish I could have pulled up more, found more. Because in this part of this campus, we have this story going on here. 2 international students, seeing a glimpse of something more in the 30-something that they're having a meal with at the dining hall. This junior at the end of his rope, deciding to give God a chance. This group of men bonding and opening up and inviting their friends to learn about God and community and the way that he wants to arrange things. This student deciding to reach her housemates with the best news that they've ever heard. People sinking their roots deep into their faith, committing to build up the church and really love the campus. I don't know for sure, but based on how God has worked in the past, now we can see more than just a glimpse. God is about to break through with reality, just in time. Because if we didn't come when we came, what would have happened to the people that God saved just in the nick of time? That's why we do it. It's totally worth it. Can you see it? Can you see why we're doing this really crazy thing? Coming here with 90 people to start a church for college students? It's not for the money. No. We're not here to be the surrounded, but it's to find people who will be future surrounders. For those who see it, man, we're trusting in God. Those glimpses signal us to step out in faith. Because we see it, we're able to obey. We're able to speak about God in a godless campus with boldness and confidence in spite of getting ridiculed about our faith. We're able to keep trying even though Satan makes us feel like we're crazy and we feel anxious about how people will receive us. We're able to keep on moving as we face friction because there are souls to save. There's a gospel to proclaim, not just here, but globally. Cambodia, ends of the earth. All the people that you saw in those pictures, the surrounders. EDM, 750 campus ministers. And we're able to be generous and have roominess in our hearts despite all of that. After blinding the whole army and bringing them into enemy territory, instead of striking them down, Elisha prepares for them a great feast. The people of God, they are into opening the eyes of the blind to see the great feast that is prepared for them in hopes that they would turn from their wicked ways. So, what are the situations in your life where you feel overwhelmed, potentially despairing, in which you need help to have the eyes of faith to see, in which you're asking, where's God in all of this? I feel surrounded, in which you're feeling afraid or weary, in which all you see is the most mundane part of reality. I think that Elisha's words of comfort are our words of comfort. Do not be afraid, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. God is with us, and knowing that he is in control enables us to deal with those situations in a way that we otherwise wouldn't be able to. Maybe he doesn't burst forth, but he quietly comes beside, like a gentle hand on the shoulder, a tender word. Do not be afraid. For who is with us? In the midst of the storm, Jesus comes to the disciples and says, take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid. Who are the ones who are riding the chariots of fire? I don't know. I'd like to think it's the heroes of heaven, heroes of faith. Hebrews 12. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Turns out all the heroes of old have come back. In fact, they never left. Led by the world's mightiest hero, who for the joy set before him endured the cross. They surround us. So, if you feel surrounded, the truth is, you are. You are totally surrounded. It's just that you're surrounded by more of those who are with you than those who are with them. There are, and there have been, people praying for the city. Will you join them in surrounding those who need his comfort and love, praying for breakthrough in Boston and beyond? You know, what if spiritual breakthrough is about to happen? Like Elisha, let us desire the eyes to see, that God would open all our eyes so that we would be able to see the reality of God, that he's about to break through, reach our lives and the lives of others. And that we would long for that day when God's more than a glimpse, when he's all of reality. And with that kind of boldness and confidence, let us become prophets to others, helping others see the blind, the lost, the fearful, opening their eyes to see the reality of God. So let's pray. Let's pray that kind of just, do you feel surrounded? Change the meaning of that word. Pray that God would change the meaning of that word, that you would open your eyes to see your life properly, reality properly, that you wouldn't get lost in the mundaneness of life or just start freaking out. There is something greater to see. God is at work. And sometimes I'm just so busy being a servant of God that I don't have the eyes of faith to see. Just pray for that. Pray that God would change the meaning of that word, surrounded. Pray that you would be able to step out in faith and what that would look like for you right now. Maybe you need to be a surrounderer. Pray that you would join us. And lastly, just pray for surrender. To just trust in God during this time in which we don't really know how he's going to work. But we do know that he's real, and reality is about to break through. The real reality, the spiritual reality. So let's just have a moment where you could just pray that and claim that for yourself. That's my prayer for myself, that instead of feeling surrounded in the negative sense, that I would know that I'm surrounded and I'm not alone. And they're right here with me. They're all around. And then I would join them. So why don't you just offer up a prayer along those lines, and we'll sing our closing song.